Entitled mom tries to have my dog put down, but my dog is a horse. I've lurked here for a while. First post though. This happened a year or so ago. So, I'm an equestrian, a horseback rider, and I go to a lot of shows and competitions. This is the breeding grounds for wealthy, entitled pricks and their crotch dumplings. I also sell horses that I train. So, I am a god-dang entitled magnet. So a bit of a description first. I work at a farm where we buy horses from auction that would go to slaughter for next to nothing, feed, rehab, and train before selling them in elite circles. We're like a for-profit animal rescue. This barn has a program where kids who normally wouldn't afford riding and showing weekly have access to equipment, training, and showing. We have around 25 horses at any given time, 20 for sale usually, and several that are permanent residents. One of these permanent residents is an ex-racehorse mare. Her name is Hellhorse. She is the biggest jerk ever, and I'm the only person who handles her because of how dangerous she can be. Now for our cast, we have me, Entitled Mom, Entitled Kid, Rider 1, Rider 2, the policeman who is looking for a new career, and Hellhorse, the queen jerk who is a horse and not a dog, along with Jasper, a nervous horse we had for less than a year who came from a PMU farm and is a sweetheart. On to the story. It was a nice Saturday and I was finishing up on one of our newer horses as I see two of my riders bail from their mother's minivan and come sprinting over to the ring's rail and flag me over. Next to the minivan is a very nice car that I don't recognize, and out steps a Karen with perfect hair and makeup in high heels at a barn. And out steps a little girl from a little Dover catalog. So my riders look pretty upset, and I go over quickly. Here's the conversation, roughly. Rider 1, Rider 2, what's up? What's wrong?
Sorry.
So we told Entitled Kid that we ride horses, and she said she rode horses and wanted to see our horses, and we told her we couldn't unless she was part of our barn. And she said, fine, make her a part of the barn, but we didn't want her to, because she's really mean to us. And so we told her the only way she could join was if Hellhorse liked her, and she could ride her to scare her off. But then she called our mom, and our mom couldn't get them to not come, and now they're here, and, sorry. Me, very confused and tired. Okay, I'll tell them it was a joke and we don't have any room. Please put Jasper in the bath stall. I hand the horse I had been working with over to Rider 1 and head over to Karen and the kid with Rider 2 in tow. Hi, I think there was a misunderstanding. We aren't taking any more.
Where is the manager?
Yep, me. You're trespassing and you need to leave.
Okay, so where's this horse Entitled Kid has to ride?
Trespassing, we aren't taking new riders right now.
No! My Entitled Kid is an amazing rider. She's been riding since before she could walk. Now, where is this horse?
That was a joke. She can't go near Hellhorse. She can be dangerous.
All horses like Entitled Kid. She has a gift.
Okay, since clearly I don't know my own horse, let me say this slowly. We aren't taking new riders.
Is that it?
She walks with Entitled Kid into my barn and to Jasper, who is waiting in the bath stall to be untacked. Entitled Kid goes right to the wrong side of the saddle, pulls down my stirrup, and tries climbing up. Jasper, being a baby who is still new to being under saddle, froze, all four legs stiff and eyes wide in terror.
Get away from him. You're going to get hurt.
I run and grab his halter and calm him while pushing the girl away. You can't mount like that, or in a wall stash, or from the ground like that. What the heck are you doing?
Mom said I could ride any horse I want here.
Get out of my barn, now!
I gave my phone to Rider 2 so she could dial 911 as she hurried to the office to get help if these jerks weren't leaving on their own. Entitled Mom saw the stall note with Hellhorse name and the mare inside.
Here we go. Finally, this one. Entitled Kid?
Entitled Kid goes and opens the door wide and walks in with Entitled Mother. Now I'm trying to get Jasper into his stall and to them before Hellhunter realizes fresh meat entered her stall. Next I hear is screaming, and Hellhorse goes trotting past me and out into the parking lot. I go after my horse because there is no way these people close the gate and my horse is going straight for the road. So I grab a bucket and some grain and shake it. Hellhorse comes trotting over, and I lead her into the ring, which is fenced in, and lock her in there. While doing this, Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid got in their car and sped off, hitting my wheelbarrow and breaking their brake light before leaving. I have a chat with Writer 1 and Writer 2 and their mom, telling them that they can't bring people with them unless I know about it, and they have 2 weeks on the ground as punishment. This means no writing and just chores. There are some tears and apologies, and an understanding mom who agrees with me that this was unacceptable. Writer 1, who is only 9 years old, then asked,
Can I go tell Vel first so she doesn't miss me?
Me, already changing my mind to just 1 week. Sure, go ahead. About 40 minutes later, I see the cop car finally show up, which I thought was weird. Then I saw the Entitled Mom's car right behind him, and I knew I was in trouble. I went over to the policeman, and this is what he roughly said.
I received a call from this barn about an incident, and this woman said she called.
Yes, this woman had her brats lure my precious baby to their farm before releasing a vicious dog that bit my baby. That beast needs to be killed before my baby will be back.
Policeman, who has clearly heard this now a few times from Karen, looks at me.
Can we speak privately?
Absolutely not. While they're on my property, I can't take my eye off them after all the stuff that they've pulled already. We finally agree that Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid will wait in their car while we talk.
So, what happened?
I give him the story, and Writer 2 comes over and tells what happened, as well as her mom. Then I get this question.
So, where's the dog?
What dog?
Entitled Mom said a dog bit her daughter.
We don't have any dogs here. A hellhorse bit her.
A horse? Horses don't bite people.
Oh, well, you'd know more about the topic than me. I get a look that says,
I can and will arrest you.
I bring the officer over to Hellhorse, who is still in the ring trotting around. When she sees us, she charges the fence and tries kicking us through the fence and biting at us.
Oh, I guess a horse can bite.
I warned them that she is dangerous, and there are signs up on her stall.
Liar! You just put those up.
Entitled Mom had rolled down her window to listen to us. So the officer goes into the barn, sees the signs, and sees that there is bird poop all over them to prove they've been there for a while. The officer then goes looking all through the barn for a dog that we've already said and proved doesn't exist. Then he goes to them.
I was told there was a vicious dog. That's a horse.
What does it matter? You saw that animal is dangerous, so kill it. Yeah, she's vicious.
I would need a judge's order, and we only handle dangerous dogs, not livestock.
I want that thing killed now.
Ma'am, how about we calm down and leave? They don't want you here, and you don't want to be here.
No, if those little jerks,
points at Writer 1, Writer 2, a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old,
get free lessons, then so does Entitled Kid.
You can't demand anything from these people.
Entitled Mom sees she's lost her trump card and gasses it out of there, hitting my poor wheelbarrow again before leaving with her license plate on the ground. The officer picks up the plate, apologizes, and leaves. I finish my barn work after taking a few Advil. Moral: horses are not dogs. I have a lot of these stories, seeing as I go to shows and sell horses, and if you guys want to know how messed up the horse world is, let me know and I'll add more. Next up we have, you want me to cancel your child support order because your new wife is pregnant? No. Edit. Okay, wow, I didn't expect this to blow up like it did. I appreciate the support of those who gave it, and for the few others that actually believe I am the wrong one in the situation, I hope and pray that you never encounter someone like this. Because of people just like the ones who committed negatively towards me is the whole reason I had my son learn his father's way himself. Because if I would have tried to save him from that hurt and disappointment, I would be accused of not letting him be in his life. So I gave him many chances to be a father, and 90% of the time, my son was left in tears because his father would rather do something else or just plain forget about him. But I never once told him he wasn't allowed to see his child. Him being told no as of now is all from my son. First, I am sorry if this is not where this belongs, but I believe it fits. On mobile. And this happened a few hours ago, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the audacity and nerves that this piece of crap entitled sperm donor has. A little background. ESD is my ex-husband. We have been divorced for 12 years. We married very young. I was 19 and he was 18. We had a beautiful son, who was the only good thing to come out of my miserable marriage. He is now 14 and has learned over time just how his father is, and has passed his own judgment against him. I remarried 6 years ago to the man I have been with for 12 years. Now there are hundreds of wild stories I have of my ex and his family. His mom. Oh, the stories I have of her. I could seriously write a book. But right now I will start with the most recent ex incident. I get a call through my messenger from my ex. He has my phone number, but does this so I can't get his. Now this obviously won't be exactly word for word, but it's very close. It's me and my ex.
Hey, what are you doing?
Cleaning my kitchen.
So, did you see I got married?
I roll my eyes. Yep, sure did. Congratulations. Now to add to the craziness that is my ex, he is a twin. His twin brother passed away almost a year ago. He called asking if I could bring our son to his funeral. I said yes. Never mind that he's completely ignored our son, except when he was showing him off when we first arrived. That's another story in itself. Now he ended up hooking up with and now married to his brother's girlfriend. Yeah, process that for a minute. He married his dead brother's girlfriend. His mom totally supports it. Anyway, back to the conversation.
Well, we just found out she's pregnant.
Shaking my head and rolling my eyes now. Well, congratulations on that. So, did you call to give me an update on your life? Or is there a reason for this call? There is always a reason.
You ain't gotta be a jerk. But yeah, I do need to talk to you about something.
Don't call me a jerk. What do you want?
I need to get a job, so we can get a bigger place.
Okay, go get a job. Why call me?
I am calling you because I need you to cancel the child support. If I get a job, they will just start taking my money.
Seriously?
A little more information to this story. When we divorced, I was granted sole custody of our son. My ex had visitations at my discretion. He refused to give him back after a visit. I had to stalk and plan for a week to get my 1-year-old back. Another time. He left the marriage, wanted a life, got another girl pregnant. Again, another time. Well, in the last 12 years, he has paid a grand total of $975. And that's only because child support enforcement garnished it. He would quit his job right after. He refuses to get a job that they take his money. So yeah, he owes a very large amount of back time. No, I have never stopped him from seeing our son because of that. Him not seeing him was from his own choices. Back to the conversation. You're really serious right now.
Well, yeah.
Hold on. You are calling me to ask me to drop the order for your child support so you can get a job, so they won't take the money that you owe to our son because you are having another baby.
Yes, it's my money.
Me, staying as calm as I can be for now. You don't remember 5 years ago you tried this, offering to sign over your rights so my husband could adopt him? Yes, he tried to blackmail me over child support. Yeah, remember what I told you? Even if I dropped it, the back time goes away when it's paid, not because I tell them to cancel it. There is no cancellation of back time child support.
That's bullcrap. You're just being a money-hungry jerk. All you care about is money.
Yeah, I snapped.
You lowlife. Piece of garbage. Money? What money? Everything my son has is because of me. His grandma's, my mom and my grandma, and his dad. He calls my husband Dad. You have contributed nothing when it comes to that kid. But you steal pictures off my profile and post them to show him off. Because you don't have any of your own. Because before, when he wanted to spend time with you, I got the I don't have time, or I have plans, or my personal favorite, I have a life, you know.
I have sent money. Where did that go? And I'm busy, and yeah, I have a life. Just because I don't want you anymore doesn't mean you can punish me. It didn't work out. Get over it already.
You are seriously the stupidest thing on 2 legs, I swear. First of all, less than $1,000 isn't going to last 12 years. Second, he is your son. He is supposed to be priority number 1 in your life. Thirdly, why in the heck would I ever want your entitled good-for-nothing bum-ass back? I have a wonderful husband who has supported not only me and his daughter, but also my son.
Whatever. I have tried to see him and you won't let me, so it's not my fault.
Yes, over the last year since the funeral, he has called a few times wanting our son to go spend time with him, his new wife, and her kids. Well, him ignoring our son at the funeral was the last item added to a long list of heartbreaks my son has endured from my ex. He was done with him. So when he would call, I would ask my son, with him on the phone, if he wanted to go with him. His answer is always, "No, sorry, I have plans." It's his choice, and no, I won't force him. Now to the ending. X, I have nothing to do with that. This is his decision. He's given you plenty of chances to step up and have a relationship with him. You blow it every time. You break promises. You call him and dog me out to him. My son is very much a mama's boy and very protective. Then block him for a week from contacting you, 'cause he blew up on you. You want to know why you don't have a relationship with him? It has nothing to do with me. Your answer is in the damn mirror. And lastly, no, I will not cancel the child support. And I hung up. I am still livid and in an extremely bad mood now. But I feel so much better getting this out. I apologize that it's long. Sorry if this seems like a rant. I guess in a way it sort of is. I just felt, from what I had experienced, that this was just crazy enough to post about, 'cause my mind is still spinning from it. Just to clear up a few things. 1. He has been arrested 3 times for his child support. They can only hold him for 90 days. Then they are back on his hunt again after a month. 2nd, my state has some of the toughest laws against deadbeat parents. The back time will follow him his whole life. No matter how old our son is, they will garnish his income to pay back what he owes. Yes, after my son is 18, the child support stops adding up, but the back time doesn't disappear. My grandma has a nursing home patient whose check gets garnished for his unpaid child support. And 3, I have never not allowed him to see our son. 90% of the time, the only way my son has seen him was because I brought him. Any other time normally ended up with a broken promise. But because I never wanted anyone to say I kept him from our son, I let my son be constantly hurt and lied to by this man. Also, my son could learn for himself the man he was. Yes, I am leaving it as sole custody. I know it's wrong, but hey, it's getting laughs. I so am leaving that as a little joke. Ex-husband wants me to cancel his child support for our son that he hasn't paid on in 12 years so he can get a job and won't have to worry about his checks being garnished. He needs his money 'cause his new wife is pregnant and they need a bigger house.
Entitled Dad almost comes to blows with an armed security officer. This is a long one, so buckle up. This happened back in 2017 when I was working as a security officer at a high-end golf course. We'll call it Fancy Golf Course. It was only a summer gig, but it paid well, and it gave me something to do for the summer while school was out. I had a really nice uniform, got handcuffs, and they even paid half of the price for my firearm. They were very good to me, up until I was laid off because of major budget cuts. Mostly my job entailed dealing with drunk golfers, breaking up fights, keeping kids that thought they could fish in our water hazards off the course, the usual. Now, something that must be said about this course. It was extremely high-end, as you would expect if they could afford to hire fully armed and certified security guards. Even though it was so high-end, it mostly catered to younger children. We had several kids' tournaments on the course every month, and of course, when you get a lot of rich kids in one place, you're bound to have a few entitled parents showing up. I was patrolling the course when I got a radio call from the pro shop manager telling me that she needs me back at the clubhouse immediately. So I made my way back as quick as I could. I was in the middle of the course, so it took a good 10 minutes for me to respond to the clubhouse. When I finally arrived, I walk in to see a tall, lanky gentleman yelling at the manager. We'll call him ED for Entitled Dad. Seeing me, he thinks I'm a police officer, since my uniform looks very similar to a police officer's from a distance. He comes over to me and tells me that he wants to press charges for harassment against the golf course, and that they are not allowing him to rent a cart to go out with his son in this tournament. So I said, I actually work for the golf course. I'm a security officer. I show him my credentials. He then proceeded to tell me that I shouldn't be carrying a gun and that I could be arrested for such conduct, which I know is total BS. So I pull out my notepad and begin to take notes on what he's telling me. After I get his side of the story, I go over to my pro shop manager and get her side of the story. Here's the thing about this particular course. We tried to handle things internally,
and not get the police involved unless it was absolutely necessary. Why did they do this? Because it did not want bad publicity. The course was sinking financially. It actually closed a year after I was laid off. Let's continue. Here's what went down. Pro Shop Manager is PM, and Entitled Dad is ED, and me is, well, me. Entitled Dad walks into the pro shop and demands a card key so he can go out and watch his son play in the tournament. Manager says, sure, let me see your driver's license and credit card. We charged a $15 rental fee. He gives her his credit card, not his driver's license, which is required by golf course safety policy. She tells him so and requests again to see his license. He also refuses the second request, and manager notices that the name on the credit card is a female, but the last name looked familiar to her. She glanced down at the blacklist and saw a name that matched the last name on the credit card. She asked him if he was this person. He denied it and said it was his brother. We have a very interesting way of blacklisting people. If we need to blacklist someone, we tell them that they have won a prize, but they have to give us their ID in order to receive the prize. We then take a photo scan of their ID, give them a small bag of free golf balls, and tell them that they have been blacklisted from the course for an X amount of time. Not really lying, but not the most ethical way of doing it, but it works. Anyway, she says, no, I'm looking at a photo scan of your driver's license and you match perfectly with the man on the driver's license. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Entitled Dad completely loses it and begins screaming at her, calling her all kinds of names that I will not repeat. Slurs. She's Hawaiian but looks Asian. You name it. He called her every name in the book. And believe me, working at golf courses almost my entire life, I've heard every cuss word you can imagine. She then says, Sir, if you don't leave, I will be forced to call security. He says, Do that! I'm not leaving! So she picked up the radio and called me immediately. Manager told me that she was in fear for her life and called a member of the kitchen staff to come out and stand beside her. Now, this member of the kitchen staff should have had my job. He was 3 times my size and had the biggest muscles on a man I've ever seen. He placed himself between Entitled Dad and the manager, silently daring him to do something stupid. I should also note that this kitchen staff member was a former prize fighter, so yeah, not someone you'd want to mess with. And right before I showed up, Entitled Dad threatened to have them all fired and said some very horrible things to the kitchen staff member and the manager. When I walked in, like I said, he assumed that I was the police and tried to twist the story in his favor. When I went up to him and asked for his driver's license, he assumed that I was going to help him, so he gave it to me. I asked him to hold on a sec, and I walked over to the blacklist board and matched his ID up with the ID on the board. It was him. Positive ID. There was a little note by his name, which said that if he was found on the course, he was to be arrested immediately for trespassing. I didn't want to do that, so I figured I would just get him to leave. I walked back over to Entitled Dad and handed him back his ID. I said, Sir, unfortunately, your name is indeed on the blacklist. Your ID matches. I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave. He screamed back, What? My son and my wife are out there on the golf course, and I want to join them to watch my son play in the tournament. I said, I'm very sorry, sir, but I can't let you do that. You have been trespassing 3 times, and if I let you on the course, I could lose my job. He said, Can you just take me out there and drop me off? And then I won't have to take one of your cards. I said, Sir, I can't do that. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. He said, I'm not going anywhere. Oh, yes, you are. I reach for my radio and call upstairs to the other security officer on duty and tell him that we may have a situation and be prepared to call the police. Entitled Dad doesn't like that and tries to grab my radio mic, all the while screaming that he's going to have me, the other security guard, the manager, and the kitchen staff member fired. He then points to my gun and says he's going to have me arrested for having it. I said, Oh, it's registered to me. Here, would you like to see my registration? Which I keep a copy on me at all times for instances such as this. I'm certified through my state to carry a duty weapon, perfectly legal, no laws were broken. He demands to see my manager. Unbeknownst to him at the time, even though I look very young, I was the highest ranking and most senior security officer there that day, and I tell him so, pointing to my bronze badge. Any other security officer would have had a silver badge. I also pointed to the lieutenant ranks on my collar. He doesn't like that and takes me as being smart. He grabs me by the collar and begins to scream in my face. Now I've had enough. I took several defense courses while I went to the academy. One of the things they taught us to do was to use pepper spray, which we had to actually be exposed to in order to carry. Well, guess what? I pulled out my hell in a can, OC spray. Anybody who has ever gotten hit with this stuff will know exactly what I'm talking about. From my utility belt, and put it right in his face and told him to back the heck off right now. He said,
"Oh, that's just an inert training version. You wouldn't be allowed to carry the real stuff."
I said, "Grab me one more time and you'll find out." A small crowd is now beginning to gather as we were both getting quite loud. He seemed to ponder that and turned away. I thought it was over. Oh, how wrong I was. He turned around with lightning speed and grabbed my collar again with one hand and made a fist with the other. This time, I sprayed him in the face with pepper spray. He immediately hit the floor, screaming and crying like a child, rubbing his eyes and screaming at the top of his lungs. I called on the radio and told my colleague what had just happened and to call an ambulance and the police. He did so and came down himself to see what he could do to help. We grabbed the jug of water and just poured it all over his face, which is the best way to relieve the burning that OC spray causes. All the while, he's yelling and screaming about how he's going to end us and ruin our lives in court. We immediately put him in cuffs and told everybody in the cafe and pro shop to please wait outside until this scene was over. Now, this is the best part, for me anyway. Just weeks earlier, our course made an investment. It was an investment that probably saved all of our butts. What was this investment? Body cams. All security officers were required to wear body cams whenever they were on duty. We all thought it was stupid, until this happened. The police arrived, and they were about to arrest me when they saw what I had done and listened to Entitled Dad's story, until I showed them the body cam footage. Then they proceeded to take him to the hospital to be treated, and as I remember it, they ended up charging him with 2 counts of aggravated assault, 4 counts of trespassing, and 3 counts of harassment. When I got to meet the mom and the kid, they were very sweet, but were very upset about what had happened. Not at me, but just upset in general. I felt very bad for them, especially his son, who was very sweet and well-mannered. I am currently not in security anymore. I am now an independent video production contractor, but I'm thinking of getting back into security for a little extra money.
How dare you treat my husband like that? He only wanted to watch the tournament.
Karen, shut up. Next up, we've got Sing, Angel of Money. I mean music. Sit, dear Redditors, and let me tell you the story of my mother. She may not be the most monstrous of mothers, but she's still a great big pile of entitled.
I am your mother. I am entitled to your existence.
Anyways, my mother had a dream. She used to sing, but one tragic, fateful day, she had a throat ache and destroyed her voice after taking too many lozenges. Or so she said. The moment she heard me sing, seeing how much I enjoyed it, there were stars in her eyes. Or maybe $signs. I can't really be sure. I was like 7. All of a sudden, she cared about me and my future. I guess if she couldn't be a famous singer, she would force me to do it. I was told that my dream was to be a singer. I was told and forced to put everything I had into it. Strenuous individual classical training, competitions, constant practice. Her favorite was to turn our, at the time, state-of-the-art sound system all the way up and force me to sing over it. She was abusive and uncaring towards me unless it was 1, in front of other people to make her seem like a good person, or 2, related to singing. I want to say that's the worst. That's the entitlement. My mom thought that because she had birthed me, she had the right to insist that I follow her dream. But it's not. I hate to honk my own horn, but I am a good singer. I always placed in the top 3, but one year I got first. I nearly cried. Not only was I going home with $100, a lot for a 10-year-old, and a trophy, but also my mom wasn't going to spend the several-hour car trip back home screaming at me for not having won. I was so very happy. I think I would have rathered the screaming though, as the 10-year-old me excitedly thought of what kinds of nice things she could get herself after working so hard. My mother said,
Lapine? Hey, I know you just got it, but I need your money for diapers and gas to get home. I'll pay you back.
My heart sunk. I knew that if I argued, I would be hit for talking back. And my little brother meant, and always will mean the world to me, so I reluctantly gave her the money. Diapers for my brother were important. They were worth it. But even that was a lie. My mother is a liar. And she is selfish, like most entitled mothers. Did she ever pay me back? No. But even worse, did she go and buy diapers and food for us like she had said she needed? Double nope. She went and got her nails done with my money, and when I confronted her about it, she said that she
couldn't handle having short nails,
and that she deserved nice things. Jerk, your children are literally starving. But that's a story for another time, and probably another sub. And our final story of the day, entitled Mom Calls My Religion a Cult. Backstory. I am a Buddhist or monk, and many people call my religion a cult, but just do a little research and you can tell we are not a cult. There was an event with the religion where 50,000 people gathered and everyone attended and got a shirt that had a lion and something about Buddhists. I'll try to add a picture. We've got the entitled mom, entitled child, my dad, and the cashier. Story. I had gone to a Publix. I live in Florida. And I had gotten some candy, and entitled child came up to me, I think he was 5, and started wailing to get my candy. And I wasn't dumb. And my dad had always told me to not give free stuff to someone because they will expect to get more of it. So I told him no, like a regular person. 30 minutes later, I got to check out while my dad is getting something he forgot, and this is what happened. Entitled child taps on entitled mom's shoulder and whispers something. Entitled mom taps my shoulder.
You stole my son's chocolate bar. Please give it back.
No, I didn't do that. Entitled mom raises her voice.
You liar! Give it back, freak!
Excuse me? Entitled mom raises her voice even higher. Notices my shirt.
Give my son his chocolate bar back, or I'll get you in juvenile, you cult attender.
Dad comes back with an item and puts it in the basket. Entitled mom turns to my dad.
And you freaking skinhead.
My dad is bald. What?
How dare you rot me? You have raised a cult attender and future skinhead. I'm calling the cops for neglect.
The cashier.
Ma'am, I thought you would stop by now, but if you don't stop, I'm gonna need to call security.
Why don't you call security on that slime ball?
Points at me. My dad realizes what's happening. Look, my son didn't steal your candy. Entitled mom realizes she's outnumbered.
Fine.
Finishes order and adds chocolate and mumbles under her breath. I wish I could say she got in jail or banned from the store, but no, she didn't. And I met her again, but in a park, but it wasn't so eventful, so I probably won't post it. Coworker gets me fired. My many years waiting for revenge. This is my first post here, and I only have done this after telling the whole story to a friend who posts on Reddit and told me that this story had to be put here after telling him the whole story. This is a long post. You've been warned. If revenge is best served cold, then my revenge was many years in the freezer, and this week was finally pulled out and had whipped cream and a cherry on top before finally served. Background. So I worked for Company A for almost a decade, that had a small team consisting of 10 people doing commissioned work for businesses in my city. The owner treated us like family, knowing that we worked long and hard days, sometimes up to 60 hours in a week. He paid us better than expected, bonuses and perks he negotiated with businesses that commissioned our work, even gave the whole company a week off paid when his son was getting married so we could attend it. We had our squabbles like any other family, and things weren't always bright and perfect, but this is to show how nice owner treated his employees and didn't screw me over. After working there for years, the manager position came open. Since by then I was one of the most senior workers with Company A, so I thought I would apply, which a few others were interested in doing as well. I didn't get the position, mainly because despite my experience at Company A, I didn't have a business administration degree. Someone who worked for owner did, so he got it. Realizing the education I would have to get and the demand of this job, I thought long and hard and concluded that if I wanted to go anywhere in life, I would have to get that degree. Coming right out of high school to work for Company A was great, but if I wanted to do something more, I would have to go to university. I talked to the owner and gave my 2 weeks notice. When I explained what I wanted to do and why, he understood that I was trying to make something of myself. This all becomes relevant later, I promise. Going to university, I found that I had tuition covered through government grants, but not things like food, rent, etc. So I looked around and eventually found work at Company B. Company B was a retail store with a bigger staff than I had been used to, somewhere around 50 employees, but had such a huge employee turnaround that it was scary at times. They dealt with a wide range of goods from groceries to very expensive items. They had a certain niche clientele that they could order items for and cater to. I ended up working part-time in their warehouse and answered to the warehouse supervisor, who answered to the manager. There were other supervisors for other parts of the store, but for this, only the sales supervisor is relevant. Skip forward 7 years. In that time, I got my BA degree and worked at Company B the whole time, going from part-time to full, and eventually applied for the warehouse supervisor position. I was interviewed, got the job, been supervisor for months when the manager and I hired Kay as a warehouse clerk. Kay isn't the one to get the revenge, but she played a crucial part in the revenge. The jerk gets hired. Jerk started out as a cashier, working quickly up the chain and brown-nosing as many coworkers as possible, including the manager. When a sales rep went on maternity leave, Jerk quickly jumped at the chance to work in sales and ended up permanently being a part of that team, then the sales supervisor soon after. Me and Jerk got along like oil and water. We butted heads over things constantly. She would tell the manager all the small things that I did, but called me a snitch when I reported the issues she was causing. She would badmouth me and my warehouse staff, talk over me at meetings, and try to take credit for my ideas. She openly told coworkers that I was the cause of many issues and couldn't wait for me to leave. Oh, and she was never at fault. It would be the customer's fault, my fault, the delivery driver's fault, another coworker's fault, etc. There were times when we got together well, but far and few between. I get fired. So one day, a very, and I mean very expensive ring set, over $5,000, I found out later, ordered by one of our customers comes in. Years ago, I set up a procedure for any type of jewelry so that it will not get lost or stolen. The last step is, once we have done everything with it in the warehouse, we take it to the office and have someone put it in the safe immediately. This particular time, I was the one who received the rings, so, once going through the procedure, told Kay that I was taking it to the office. The only one available who had the combination to the safe was Jerk. I asked her if she could open the safe. She looked at me, looked at the jewelry box in my hand, then said,
Put it down here on my desk. I'll put it away once I'm done with this email.
Keep in mind that me and Jerk had had a serious spat over something earlier that day, and I generally didn't feel like being close to her if I could help it, so I never saw her put it in the safe myself. The next day, I get a call from the manager to come to the office. I head there to find manager, Jerk, and the HR consultant they pulled in when some real crap hits the fan. Manager tells me that said ring set has disappeared. I tell them the procedure I followed, and last I saw them was with Jerk. Manager tells me that Jerk checked the box and that said box was empty. Manager then pulls the box out. Sure enough, the box the rings were in was indeed empty. I swear to manager that the rings were inside when I checked them before giving them to Jerk. At this point, it's my word against hers. By stroke of bad luck, the in-store video recorder had broken down days before the incident, so there was no way to verify what happened. We all know someone has to take the blame for this, and that's when Jerk strikes, saying that it was my fault since it was last seen in my hands. Manager asks if this is true. Then I realize that, yes, I was indeed the last person to touch the thing, and I never actually saw Jerk pick up the box. Jerk gives me the look that screams, "Gotcha!" Manager and the HR consultant asked us both to leave. After what seemed like forever, I get called in. Manager tells me that, since I was responsible for the rings at the time and now are lost, they would be firing me. But since they had no proof as to whether I stole the rings or not, they wouldn't press charges, which scared the crap out of me, as this was the first time I heard of them thinking this. I go back to the warehouse, tell Kay and the other warehouse clerks just what happened, grabbed my personal belongings, and left that day. After a couple weeks of trying to get my head around what happened and weighing my options, I decide my first priority is to try to get some sort of job, and consider it lucky if I get a job flipping burgers with the bad rep when they ask Company B. I call the owner of Company A to get a good reference from them and explain what happened and why I was calling, only to get the shock of a lifetime. The manager position was about to be open. The guy who I lost the position to was retiring soon, due to complicated health reasons. Owner had kept tabs on me while at university and understood when I didn't immediately come back to him. But with a golden opportunity like this, he wanted me back, and I wasn't going to say no. I dive into my new job I originally wanted with an owner I enjoyed working for. I thought, then and there, everything would be behind me, not knowing it would come back, not to bite me, but to pay dividends. The revenge. Kay's side. This I found out after Jerk's reckoning. After I was fired, Kay knew she had to do something about Jerk. Kay knew that I wouldn't lose or steal something like the rings, but also knew that, without proof, Jerk would deny that she did it and have Kay in her crosshairs to attack next. So, after talking with her husband, she hatched a plan. She started hanging out with Jerk, telling her things like, "I'm so glad he's gone," or "Wish he had been fired much earlier." Jerk, feeling high from getting rid of one of her thorns in her side, soaked it all in, and after a couple of weeks, invited Kay and Kay's husband, from now on KH, for drinks at her place with her and her husband. Months pass. Kay and her husband do things regularly together with Jerk and Jerk's husband, including drinking on weekends and couple-related events. When together, Kay would occasionally badmouth me, and Jerk would agree. Finally, after over a year of playing nice, when Kay and her husband were over at Jerk's for one of their drinking parties, Kay randomly badmouthed me, mentioning the rings in passing. Then Jerk says something that Kay was waiting for.
"I wanted those rings, so I stole them."
Kay, hearing this, asks for more details. Kay's husband looks at her, tries to wave her off with one hand, then gives up when Jerk keeps talking. That day, Jerk had stopped writing her emails and was going to put the rings in the safe. The safe was open, and she was about to put the rings away when Jerk had an idea. See, as mentioned above, Jerk wanted me gone from Company B. She also wanted those rings. She also knew that the cameras weren't working. She figured that she could pocket the rings, tell the manager they were missing, and spin it so I would take the blame. Kay then asks where are the rings now, and Jerk, being too drunk and not seeing a reason not to brag, not only tells her, but shows her where they are in her room. All the while, Kay's husband had been recording the whole conversation on his phone. The hand waving was him saying he started recording. Kay gives a copy of the recording to manager the next day at work. Police are called immediately. Jerk is arrested and her house is raided. They find the rings. Kay and her husband give the recording and testimonies to police. Jerk's reckoning has begun. Revenge, my side. I get a call from the prosecutor's office about Jerk is arrested and charged with theft over $5,000, among other things. He wants me to testify about what she did to me. I didn't skip a beat in saying yes. Fast track to the trial. Prosecutor has me, Kay, and her husband testify and plays the recordings of Jerk admitting that she stole them. Her attorney tries to throw out the case, saying that Kay got Jerk deliberately drunk, but Judge didn't buy it, since there was proof she drank all the time. Judge was lenient and gave her 5 years in prison, which she yelled was unfair, but I personally thought she got off easy. Meanwhile, as the trial was happening, I was talking with a lawyer to sue Jerk for setting me up like she did. We were also going to sue Company B for wrongful termination, but they settled the day they got the notice of the lawsuit and knew they would lose. Jerk wasn't so lucky. They tried some trickery by having her husband divorce her, and he received everything in the divorce, but my lawyer added him into the lawsuit as well. My lawyer asked overall for $3,500 for emotional distress, back pay from when I was fired until I started up with Company A again, and legal fees. And now, you are wondering where the metaphoric cherry is on this story. Well, recently we had someone leave Company A, so we were hiring someone to replace them. Owner was going over the resumes and set up interviews for the job this week. Lo and behold, Jerk was one of the people to apply, but he didn't know that. I looked at the resume, was about to trash it, but then smiled. Owner set up the interview. She came in at her slotted time, looking to brown nose her way through. Then she saw me. I smiled an evil smile. She went white. All I said was, "Ah, Jerk, how are you? Remember me?" A deer in the headlight look from her. I look at her resume and say, "I'm sorry. I do not think you will be a good fit for our company. Thank you for applying." She said not one word and left. Edit. I forgot to mention that it had been almost 6 years between her last job, Company B, and her coming to the interview. Edit 2. Thank you everyone for the medals. Yes, I kept in contact with Kay and her husband since leaving. I've told them about this post and the respect people had for them here. Next up we've got Entitled Parent versus Fast Pass cast member. Yes, it's time for another entitled parent at Disney. This day I was off, so I went to the park as a guest. Important because I overheard but did not join in. Our cast. We've got cast member, entitled father, entitled kid, someone who needs a pop to their butt. So I was sitting by a fast pass entrance to a ride when I overheard this.
We would like to ride. How much to use this entrance?
What? You don't pay for a fast pass entrance. You just need a fast pass.
What's that?
I couldn't understand how this man doesn't know what a fast pass is. This was trode the end of the paper fast passes.
If you go over to those machines and scan your park ticket, it will give you a return time so you don't have to stand in the main line.
We want to ride now.
Entitled kid starts playing with the chains for the line.
I'm bored, Daddy. Can we go on the ride?
Yes, we will. And we won't be waiting in any line or waiting for a return time neither.
Sorry, you cannot cut in line or use the fast pass entrance without a return time.
Entitled father started yelling.
I will not wait in line. Do you know how much I paid to be here?
One guest in the main line said, "Not more than me and my family." The entitled father was mad.
Would you like to talk to a manager?
Why not? I will get you fired for not doing what I said.
He lowered his voice when he noticed the 2 Disney security looking at him.
Just let us on now.
No fast pass, no entrance.
Entitled father stormed off without talking to the manager when he noticed that Disney security was now in a few feet of him. Entitled Mom and Kid Steal My Phone and Broke My Earphones with a Surprise Ending. Okay, so hi all. I literally just started using Reddit to add this story, as to this day it still upsets me. So I apologize for spelling and grammar. So, to give you some background, I have major anxiety and depression. Like so bad, I rarely leave the house. I'm a 22-year-old male, so yeah, it sucks. So I was running out of medication for my anxiety and depression, and I needed to get the month's worth ahead of time, as I keep forgetting. I phoned the doctor and made sure my repeat prescriptions were sent through to the local pharmacy. Entitled Mom, you guessed it. Entitled Kid, you nailed it. Pharmacist, head pharmacist, and me, the one and only. So as a way of controlling my anxiety, to a certain extent, I listened to music loaded in my earphones to focus on that instead of the surroundings. It's a decent walk up a hill to the pharmacy, and I begin my walk listening to my playlist. I arrived there roughly 5 minutes later, and my stomach was in agony, but I opened the doors and headed to the counter. This is as follows from memory. The pharmacist. Hi, how can we help? I have a repeat prescription. I was wondering if it's ready for me. Sure, I'll take a look. Okay, we have them, but you'll need to wait a few minutes for us to get everything, okay? Yeah, okay. I sit down on these horrific plastic chairs. Now my stomach was hurting and my butt. In walks Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid. At this point, I have my phone out, swapping songs to AC/DC. Now for some background on my earphones. They were an old pair of earphones that were obviously damaged from the wire exposed, yet they still worked. Entitled Mom.
Excuse me?
Pharmacist. Hello, ma'am. How can I help?
My poor kid is very ill and needs some medication for her. Do you have any children's medicines?
Of course. What's wrong with her exactly, so we can get you the right stuff?
She's got a bad cough. Can't breathe very well.
So, a bad cold? Okay, we have some stuff that can help you, but you'll have to wait until we've finished this gentleman's medication.
That's not fair. My kid's really ill and needs this medication now. Look at him. He's probably making it up.
Ma'am, first off, he's been waiting before you came in, and it's obvious he isn't faking it. He's in visible pain.
Whatever. Make it quick.
Hi, Twist. Your medication is ready. Can you fill this form as usual?
Yeah, I just need to sign right here. At this point, Entitled Kid yanked my phone from my pocket and bolted to Entitled Mom. In the process, snapping the wire so the jack was still in my phone. It's an older model phone with a protective case. Excuse me, can you give me back my phone? Also, thanks for destroying my earphones.
Excuse me? Don't you talk to Entitled Kid like that, you piece of crap.
Ooh, Darth Vader and cool music.
Give me my phone back, or I will get it from her.
If you even dare, I will phone the police and have you charged.
Listen, lady, I can't be bothered to deal with this. Give it back, please.
No, that's her phone now.
Ma'am, can you not cause a commotion, or we'll get the police involved?
Do it. You saw him.
He said he would attack my kid.
Forget this. I need some air, otherwise I'm going to explode. I walk out, and this is what the head pharmacist told me happened before I re-entered. Head pharmacist. Excuse me, pharmacist, what's the issue here?
This woman's kid stole Twist's phone and broke his headphones and won't return them.
Actually, sir, this is my daughter's phone. That man assaulted us.
Okay, let me check the security cameras with pharmacist.
Mommy, it went off.
What? Unlock it, dear.
It won't.
After 5 minutes passed, Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid were looking at me through the glass and smirking. Good news, Entitled Mom. The police are on the way and will talk to everyone.
Good. Scum like him deserve what's going to happen to him.
You are aware that you are not only at fault, but going to be charged with theft and destruction of property, right? It's all there in the video.
How dare you call me a liar? I will make sure you get arrested too.
I walk in fuming, in pain, and honestly, I wanted to punch this woman. I genuinely was in so much pain and nervous I was going to throw up, crap myself, and be out of breath all at once. I struggle to control emotions, so any emotions can explode out of me. I snatched my phone back and unlocked it, texting my mom what happened. At this point, 2 officers arrived, followed by entitled mom's husband. So now we've got Police Officer 1, Police Officer 2, and Nice Dad. Police Officer 1. Ma'am, we have reports you've been causing a hassle and stealing a phone. Come with us to our car for some questions, please.
No, I wasn't at fault. It was Twist, that jerk.
Officer 2.
Sir, are you okay? You don't look well.
Head Pharmacist. He has major anxiety and depression issues, officer. He was not at fault. He only took his phone back. That's what happened. I just wanted my medicine. Then my phone was taken and my earphones broke.
Okay, son, let me take a statement and you can go home, okay?
Yeah. I have security cameras for evidence. Nice Dad.
Excuse me, officer. What's happening with my wife?
She's probably going to be charged with theft and destruction of property.
Oh, for goodness sake. What did she break?
Head Pharmacist. His earphones. Not expensive, but it was a coping mechanism for him.
Here, mate.
Gives me 100 pounds.
Sorry for my wife. She can be a real jerk.
After I gave a statement, I was allowed to leave. She ended up getting charged with theft and destruction of property. Because of the Nice Dad, I got a pair of wireless headphones, and I occasionally see him around when walking. The pain it caused me. God, it was a few hours until I could calm down fully. To the people who gave me karma, upvote me, and upduded me, that one made me laugh. Thanks, and I hope you don't run into an entitled parent. Edit. Someone asked why the head pharmacist disclosed my medical history. He didn't. I should have worded it better. He basically told the officer I have anxiety and depression because I was pale and shaking, and, well, they assumed I was on something. So the head pharmacist wanted to make sure the officer had every detail. Hope that clears it up a bit for you. Edit. I might be new here, but my friend said there will always be people who call BS. Hello, those people. We don't acknowledge you, as you just want to start something. Edit. For people asking about the head pharmacist knowing about my earphones, on several occasions I have spoken with him as well as consulted with him on some things to help me out. I spoke about music helping me, and he understood what I meant. So I'm trying to reply to every comment, but it's 12 and I am knackered, so I'll get back to you all tomorrow. A few silvers and a gold? To whoever you glorious people are, I literally don't know anything about medals. Thank you for your generosity. Or possible Reddit execution. Next up we've got, it's been a burden on us to keep paying your salary. For the past 6.5 years, I've been employed by my dad in the family business. It's an office job with just the two of us slaving away. Or when there is no work, sitting on our hands and waiting. The entitled parents in this story is both my ungrateful parents who have been taking advantage of me long before I started working for him. And now they have done it. I've run out of hoots, and I'm looking for another job without them knowing. Since I've started working for them, they have done nothing but flaunt their money at me. Promises of riches if I work hard enough and would become partner and take over the business someday. But it's been an absolute nightmare. At the same time, they have been benefiting greatly from having me work for them. I get to watch The Office, deal with clients, do any work that comes in, and my dad, for the first time since he started the business, is free to do as he pleases. He can now run off to go shopping with my mom, entertain guests, just sit around and watch TV when his favorite sport is on. Freedoms he hasn't known for years. While I have a panic attack to ask to stay home from work if I'm sick or it's too dangerous to drive, because he would call me a baby. Get over myself and get to work. I've been belittled, threatened, verbally abused, and gaslighted the whole time with small gaps of peace that never lasted long. When I first started working, I was still living at home, but after getting threatened to get fired and kicked out for something completely unrelated to the job, I moved. They were shocked into everything to convince me not to go. I did anyway and moved in with my best friend that they hate. Since moving out, I've been struggling and been living paycheck to paycheck with my small savings dwindling. This year, I didn't get a raise. That's a BS bones system that lets my dad decide how much extra money I am worth that month.
I can't be the only one to think that's bull. Anyways, last week while I've been talking to my mom about my apartment wanting to raise the rent by 9% on us, I live in a state with no rent control, and how I'm not sure how I and my roommate will handle it if we can't get the renters to give us a better deal. I mentioned that it would have been easier if I would have gotten a raise like every other year I've been working for them. Mom lost her crap and started yelling at me.
We have had to go into our savings. We are really struggling with no work coming in.
I'm sorry, I can't give you sympathy because I've had to worry about having money for food and gas.
If you weren't our daughter, we would have fired you because we can't justify paying you. We used to have $60,000 in savings, and now we are down to $20,000.
What? I was so mad and knew if I said anything, it would have ended badly. So I walked away. How do you waste $40,000 in 4 months? We haven't even been completely workless. It's just been less than normal for most of it. Side note, I have a few ideas as to where the money went. Large donations to their church, trips all over the country, expensive food. My parents are living the good life. I think my mom realizes she messed up because she immediately went out and got ingredients to make my favorite food in time for lunch. I'm convinced this is just another control tactic to keep me in line because I have a history of not wanting to be controlled. This one is going to backfire on them big time. Once I get a new job, I plan to quit on the spot due to hostile work environment. After that, I'm taking a long break from them, probably years if not longer. I can't wait to see the look on their faces. If anyone is interested, I'll update when things develop. Thank you for taking the time to read, and sorry if anything is confusing. I'm just so mad and had to vent. Also, sorry about any grammar or misspellings. I'm working on it. Edit. Fixed some of the formatting. Sorry about that. No more text wall. Edit 2. Oh wow. Thank you everyone for all the support. It means so much to me, and I will keep you all updated. Edit 3. Since people are asking, my dad and I are IP illustrators, working with law firms to make drawings so they can be trademarked. This job requires connections and very expensive computer programs. So, as much as I would love to make a competing company, I just don't have the resources. Next up, we've got Entitled Dad learns rules apply to everyone in the pool. This literally happened like 18 hours ago, and I'm still stunned by the audacity of the guy at the pool. Cast. We've got me, my humble self. We've got a brat at the pool, and the entitled dad. Here's what happened. So, I am a guy who loves swimming, probably my favorite activity after kickboxing. I always have taken swimming a bit too seriously. Every day trying to break my limit record, because practice makes perfect, and I hate being interrupted in anything that I do. I am a pretty chill person, I don't often lose my cool. But please, for the love of God, don't tick me off. It usually doesn't go very well. It's my daily swim time, 8 p.m. every night after kickboxing. Everything is fine till I enter the pool, change my clothes, put my cap, take a little shower, and into the pool. I choose my regular lane, which is the cornermost one, because no one usually takes that corner. And I notice this kid, about 7 to 8 years old, in the pool making whale-like noises and splashing around in the water. He's the brat. The clubhouse rules are that kids below 13 need to get their butts out of the pool at 7:30 p.m., no exceptions. So, 13 and up, people who want to swim can swim and not horse around. Basically meaning you can horse around till 7:30 p.m., irrelevant of age. I mean, it's whatever. I don't really care about a kid being in the pool as long as he's not being a pain to me. I'm 17, just so you know. That's when I noticed that this brat is deliberately getting in people's way who are in the middle of a lap, repeatedly. Again. I don't care as long as it's not mine. Selfish, but I don't care. People tell him to get out of the way, and he giggles and he goes away. I begin to take my third lap, and Brat starts heading my way. And of course, I can't see because my head's in the water. And last I remember, he was on the opposite lane of the pool from me. So here I am, doing freestyle, and trying to meet my goal for the day, and in comes Brat, headbutting me in the water. I stagger and halt myself, choking on some water. Not fun. Me, still keeping my cool. I tell Brat to get off this lane as I am using it. Mind you, the pool is empty-ish. It's a 6-lane pool, so 5 were taken, including mine. He tells me to go to another lane. Dude, you're a kid. Behave like a kid. I start getting upset. For the second time, I tell him nicely, go to the lane you were in now. I'm guessing he sensed that crap might hit the fan for him if he pesters me more, so he swam to his father in the lane that was occupied. I didn't know his father was there, and he's just chilling there. Like, dude, what? Control your child. People here are wishing you would have wrapped it up, or at least be a better father. All I hear are some murmurs, and then the kid pointing towards me. I start heading to the initial point of my lane to restart, but then entitled dad starts to waddle towards me with his kid. I knew something was up, so I didn't start my lap again, because I knew I would be interrupted again. Sorry for being a stereotypical guy here, but entitled dad was a young, handsome, clean-shaven man. So what I assumed he was going to say when he came up to me was, "Sorry for the inconvenience. I'll see that my child doesn't interrupt anyone again." But reality is often disappointing. This was in Hindi, so I'm translating.
What happened? Why did you scold my kid?
Well, I don't know whether you noticed, but your kid here is headbutting everyone in the pool for his own enjoyment.
Dude, he can do whatever he wants. It's a public pool, you retard.
Now I start losing my cool. My volume increases a little for our conversation to become a show for everyone. Just because it's a public pool doesn't mean you and your absolute trash son can do whatever you want. Do you even have a basic sense about how to behave in public and how to make your child understand what's wrong and what's right?
Don't talk to me like that, you little jerk. Do you know who I am?
I give absolutely zero hoots about who you are, and observing from your behavior, you must be nothing but scum who got everything handed to you by your parents. And as a matter of fact, the people here and the lifeguards were doing your kid a favor by even letting him in the pool. This finally draws the attention of the lifeguards, who are finally done with the kid's crap and told the kid to get out of the pool. The father, getting upset by the second, told him to go change and wait for him until he was done swimming. Obviously, the kid began to whine and said that,
Dad, if I can't swim, then you can't either.
LMAO. If looks could kill, I'd be dying for an eternity. He starts waddling out of the pool with his son still crying, giving me a deadly look, and what do? I take off my goggles, put a big smile on my face, and wink, and carry on swimming. That guy wasn't very happy, and he was fuming. Edit 1. Grammar, because I can't spell apparently. Edit 2. Glad you guys liked my story, especially the Thanos part. And our final story of the day. Lady told my manager that my anxiety was an excuse to be rude to her kid. This happened the other day at work. Apparently, people just want to make us retail workers cry this week. The next day, a lady got rough with one of my coworkers too. Something in the air, I guess. But anyway, on to the entitled parent part. I work part-time at a local chain pet store, mostly with the fish section, but I float around the store most slow days. Friday afternoon, pretty peaceful day. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. Then came in a middle-aged couple with a young toddler into the fish section where I was doing my daily cleaning routine on the aisles. Folks walked by, asked them how they were doing, and said if they needed help, just ask. You know, normal retail sales intro. Seemed pleasant enough. It got worse when they actually needed help though. The entitled mom did indeed need some help getting some fish. Quite a few, so it took a little bit of time catching them all. Throughout this time, catching and placing the fish in the temporary container to move them to the backing table, the toddler was extremely nosy and had no sense of personal space whatsoever. I have anxiety around kids in general. I don't like to be touched, and I don't really have the programs in my brain to deal with them for long periods of time. At first, I nervously laughed and told the kid to watch out that I didn't want to accidentally knock him down with an elbow or drop water on his head. Reasonable request. Kid kept on, then started asking the same questions over and over and over again. Kept wanting me to get other fish that his parents didn't ask for. At one point, I said, "You gotta ask your parents about those," or jokingly asked if he was gonna pay for them. Kid then started to climb on my ladder away from me, which he shouldn't have been doing, but by all means, get out of my space. Like, I thought I was doing pretty well, seeing as I was interacting with this kid and not going completely off my rocker. He even started to touch my shoulder and arms, trying to get me to look at the fish he wanted but wasn't getting, which is a big trigger for me. I hate being touched by strangers. Entitled Mom was getting a little irritated that I wasn't acting like a normal woman, just drooling all over this kid that she probably thought was being cute. Note that they've only told the kid to get out of my face and space once in this entire 5 to 10 minute interaction, despite my obvious discomfort. Last straw was when the dad, he was cool by the way, took the kid over to another aisle, thank God. But just as soon as he left, he came running back with a net and tried to get between my legs to try and catch his own fish. He had even taken the wrapper off it like he meant business. The dad was running after him. The entitled mom thought it was cute. I, however, was disassociating already from stress, trying not to get overwhelmed, and suddenly panicked when he went straight for the open hatch. The lift hatch on this one in question is temperamental, and could have easily slammed down on his fingers and hurt him. Softly said in a panicked voice, "Please don't. Oh, please don't." After which the entitled mom finally grabbed the kid's arm and held him only a short distance away, still in my space, but restrained, I guess. Entitled Mom then proceeded to get huffy with me and said,
You don't have kids, do you? You really need to work on your patience with kids.
At this point, neither parent had done much to control a kid and hadn't said any kind or negative connotation words like no, or even the kid's name. Just let him all up in my space. Being really out of whack now with my anxiety in full gear, didn't think about it and replied back, "No, ma'am, I don't. I don't really plan on it either, since my anxiety makes it kind of difficult to handle kids for long periods of time." Oh, this really upset her. At this point, I wasn't mentally present. I was just trying to get these people out of my space and not lose my cool. They didn't say a word after this. Handed their fish bags to them and told them have a good day and that they have a 30-day guarantee on the fish. I was thankful it was over. I've had experiences like this before and have learned to control the anxiety much better working retail for 2 years. So here I thought it was over and I could relax again. I didn't notice any changes in them, so I wasn't expecting anything to come about after the whole ordeal. Went back to normal, did some breathing exercises to calm my nerves and get centered on reality again. Talked to some other customers who were looking. Overall, I thought it was done and I could relax again. Oh, how I was wrong. At checkout, lady asked my coworker if she could speak to a manager. Classic Karen behavior. I was far enough away that I didn't get to hear the interaction, but according to my least favorite manager, the lady went off about how I was rude to her kid and told her I was never having kids ever, and that my anxiety was an excuse to be a jerk to her 3-year-old son who didn't know any better. Meanwhile, my coworker said the kid in question had ran over to another customer's dog while entitled mom was going off and ignoring her precious spawn, which is extremely dangerous as we have dogs that can be nervous that are going to training classes around the time in question. The second that dog bit the kid, it would have been put down and entitled mom would have sued. Coworker said the customer with the dog looked at entitled mom in a "can you please come get your kid" expression, but didn't want to intervene entitled mom mid-Karening to avoid her wrath. Meanwhile, I'm back in my happy place, talking to the fish and OCD organizing to get my senses back to normal. Unaware that I was about to have a meltdown in a minute or two, least favorite manager comes over and asks me if I can have a quick chat. Said sure and asked what was up. He normally likes to micromanage, so I didn't take it as out of the ordinary. Then proceeds to lay it on me that I had a complaint that I was rude and the lies the lady had spat about me. Other cool manager walks by and asks what's up, relays the same info to him. I suddenly lose my cool. I go off, explain that no, I wasn't rude, that the kid had hit every trigger button I had and barely managed to keep calm as it is, quietly raging that I can't stand kids or their parents, etc. And all heck broke loose. I lost it. Everything I had bottled up during that interaction with entitled mom and entitled kid blew up. Looked at my arm mid-range. It was shaking like crazy and I could feel tears coming on. Anxiety attack, a bad one. Told them to hold that thought, that I was having an attack and had to go to the back for a bit. Proceeded to lay on the floor in the break room in fetal position for about 20 minutes after taking my real deal chill pills in hopes I could stave it off. Too late though. I couldn't work for another hour while waiting on it to pass. My whole body was flushed. Typical anxiety attack symptoms for me. Coworker came to check on me. Cool manager asked if I was alright. Coworker that had watched the whole thing took pity on me and came back to bring me a guinea pig as emotional support. I finally calmed down enough to work the last hour. But sure, I totally faked an anxiety attack to be a jerk to a 3-year-old. I mean, I'm not a fan of kids, but I'm not gonna be mean to them for no reason. Just learn to control your kids, folks. Good kids I can deal with easily. Bad or no boundaries kids set me off. So now I'm getting to where I don't want to help people with kids anymore in fear that they'll try to get me fired over the fact that I interact with kids a little differently than some people. I just talk to them like they're little adults most of the time. If that offends people, I don't think I'm the problem here.
Neighbor bullies struggling immigrants for 15 years and their kid gets revenge. I'm sorry it's long, but I think it's worth it. A bit of context first. I'm an only child born in the USA to older parents. They were both 45 when I was born, who immigrated from Venezuela in the 90s. When I was 2, my dad was shot in the head. He lived for another 13 years, but the incident permanently damaged certain parts of his brain, and he was a completely different person for those last 13 years. He went from being the most loving, incredible, caring, compassionate person around to an aggressive, violent jerk who blew up over the smallest things, but only ever at his inner circle, which was me, my mother, and other close family. He always managed to keep his composure around strangers for fear of someone calling the police and him getting arrested, but he would later let it all out on my mom and myself, mostly me. After the shooting, he could never work again, and my mom was forced into the position of being the family's sole breadwinner. We lived in poverty for many, many years because the USA wouldn't recognize her college degree and she couldn't afford to go to college again, so she couldn't work in her field and had to start at the bottom of the ladder. Dad eventually died when I was 15 of issues related to the shooting. Now, when I was 7, my parents decided to move into a town with a better reputation for their schools than the one we were currently living in, so that I could attend a better school. They bought a house literally on the edge of town. Most of this town is incredibly expensive, but because on the other side of our street and across the town line, there's a big complex of government-subsidized housing, our area is much cheaper. This is the house with the jerk neighbor. The house is a 3-family. For the last 16 years, we have owned and occupied the 3rd floor, while the terrible neighbor lived on the 2nd floor. Until recently, the 3rd floor has been occupied by over 10 owners and tenants over these years. None have stayed more than 3 or 4 years, and some have stayed as little as a handful of months. Now the 2nd floor woman, let's call her Karen, because obviously she has a husband who we'll call Bill, and they have a young son, Henry. Here's the story. When we moved in, Karen and Bill already had been here for a few short months. The 3 of us on the 1st floor, Karen and Bill on the 2nd, and the original 3rd floor's owners, bought the house from the same crew who had bought it and turned it into a 3-family, fixing it up in the process. Karen quickly showed her true colors as a bully. Over the years, there's been countless examples of nasty things that she's pulled. Her husband, Bill, is an immigrant himself and doesn't speak very good English. He's very submissive to her and does whatever she wants, but in front of other people, makes himself out to be physically dominant. In our first years here, they used to fight a lot, which we regularly heard from downstairs. They would yell, sometimes for hours, and occasionally it seemed like things got violent. Henry was born maybe 10 years ago. He doesn't factor into the story until much later, but anyways, the point is, whatever Karen's done, she's always gotten away with it. Here are a couple of highlights. My mom always took pride in how well she took care of our trash bin and recycling bin. Every month she'd give them a quick rinse after that week's trash day, just to make sure that they wouldn't develop a smell or a colony of bacteria wouldn't move in. Karen, apparently, wasn't so diligent, and one time her recycling bin got really nasty, and I mean really nasty, so she just left it out back. Context: behind the house isn't a backyard, it's just pavement with a parking spot designated for each unit, and began using ours. Lo and behold, ours started to get nasty, and Mom quickly went from spending a quick 3 minutes rinsing it out every month to about 45 minutes scrubbing it with water and soap to clean it out. Eventually, we decided we had had enough, and she and Dad sent Karen and the third floor tenants of the time a polite but firm email that basically said, "Whoever started using our recycling bin, please stop and use your own. You never asked our permission, and we take good care of it. And ever since you began using it, it's become disgusting." We knew it was Karen and Bill, but Mom and Dad figured it was more polite without a call-out, and they didn't want to start anything. Within a week, 2 things happened. Karen and Bill got a brand spanking new recycling bin, and 1 week we found ours had been mysteriously destroyed. Someone took a knife to it and cut it to pieces. We had no way of knowing who it was, but we had a pretty good feeling we knew exactly who it was. Yes, we had to get a new one. Because we had no evidence of who did it, though, my parents didn't say anything about it. Back when we could afford a car, we haven't had one since our first few years here, we used our parking spaces out back. Every time that Karen and Bill hosted a party, which back then was surprisingly frequently, they would toss their trash over the balcony into the general vicinity of the trash and recycling bins out back, which is literally right next to our designated parking space. Most of the dents we had on our old '88 Toyota were from the bottles thrown from the second floor balcony. We had windows break a couple of times. Same deal. Each time it happened, my parents would politely go upstairs, knock on Karen and Bill's door, and respectfully ask them to stop throwing stuff over the balcony because we know you don't mean it, but sometimes it accidentally hits our car. Each time they went and did that, Karen and Bill stopped, but they would do it again until they got caught during their next party. Again, though, my parents never wanted to escalate the situation, so they never justified taking it further than knocking on the door and politely asking them to stop. This is another example of Karen's utter behavior, but it's also relevant for the revenge parts of the story, so I'm putting it after the bullet point section. Our basement is shared between all 3 units. Each unit has its designated space boxed out, kind of like office cubicles, and there's some designated common area in between. Years ago, maybe like 8 or 9, Karen and Bill completely filled their designated basement cubicle, so they just started piling stuff all over the common area. Eventually, they developed this enormous pile of junk in front of Unit 1, which was our unit, the oil tank, for heating. My mom and dad never said anything because it happened over a long period of time and they didn't want to start a fight. And as far as I know, none of the third floor folks ever said anything either. But it got to the point where she and her husband were taking up common area space that was easily twice the size of their designated cubicle. Now, I'll be the first to admit that for many years my parents and I weren't great neighbors either. We didn't bully anyone, but due to my dad's condition, he could be triggered by seemingly anything, and suddenly he'd be in a rage and we'd all be yelling. I grew up in that generally chaotic environment, and yeah, there were several times when the police were called to our house for noise disturbances. But we kept to ourselves, and we were nothing but polite and respectful to all of our neighbors, always. That said, you can imagine that our first priority was always my dad and his stability, and we had enough on our hands with that, so he and mom always swallowed their pride and avoided doing anything to antagonize Karen, no matter how shitty her behavior got. And believe you me, there are plenty of more stories on top of the ones I told above. After my dad died, I developed my own issues for a while, with mental health. Growing up in a constantly chaotic, violent, aggressive environment took its toll on me, and for a time, I had deeply depressive tendencies. I struggled with suicide for years, and eventually wound up graduating high school after 8 years of attending classes in some form or another. Similar to when my dad was sick, I became my mother's top priority at that point. So again, Karen and Bill kept getting away with all of their bullshit. I got better though. Nowadays, I'm even off of my psychiatric medication. I got my life together and graduated high school, and even college. I have my bachelor's and I'm doing some post-grad stuff for my master's. Most of the way has been paid for by scholarships, but I recently decided that as an adult now, and therefore as someone with a little more to say in things around the house than when I was a kid, I had enough of watching Karen bully my parents over the years, particularly my mother. For so many years, I wanted revenge. Phase 1 of my plan was to ease my way into the adult condo administration dialogue. I began helping out more around the house. as in around the common area parts of the house. I single-handedly redid the back porch's flooring. It sounds like more than it is. I just pulled out all of the floorboards and nailed new ones in. I replaced both storm doors about 6 months apart, when each one began having problems, different kinds of problems. It doesn't matter what they were. I also took care of some comparatively smaller things. I weed-whacked out back for a couple of hours, cut the grass out in front a few times, and got up early so that I could beat everyone else to the shoveling every time it snowed. I also began wheeling back everyone's recycling and trash bins after trash week every week, not just our own. Each time I sent out an email to everyone in the condo to let them know that I had taken care of it, and that all I asked of the other 2 units was for them to reimburse me 1/3 of the cost of the materials on their timetable, because of course I hadn't given them a heads up, so it was only fair that I allow them to pay me when they can. The smaller stuff from the last bullet point I mentioned, I obviously didn't need to announce. The idea was just that over time, the neighbors would see me taking more initiative in things and being more active, which would go on to justify me participating more in the intercondo politics. I also made a point to keep conversations to emails so that there would be a written record of every interaction. Phase 2 of my plan ran pretty much concurrently to Phase 1, but had an entirely different purpose, and was overall entirely different. I began gathering evidence of everything I could. I asked my mom to track down all of the old emails she and my dad had exchanged with the neighbors, documenting many instances that Karen and Bill had pulled something. I went downstairs and took a video of Karen and Bill's shit all over the common area, particularly emphasizing all of the highly flammable wooden and cardboard things that they had piled up in front of our oil tank. I dug up and pored over the deed to our apartment, specifically the sections that detailed the rules around common areas and the limitations of our unit as compared to the others and vice versa. To my utter joy, Mom and Dad never threw out that old recycling bin that Karen and/or Bill had knifed up, apparently because they just never knew what to do with it and never wanted anyone to ask questions. Naturally, I dug it up and took plenty of photos. I did one other evidence-gathering thing that needs a bit more explanation. Karen and Bill are awful parents. Mom and I regularly hear the things that they do to Henry through the very thin ceiling we have here. I'm decidedly not going to go into detail because even though I changed his name, he's still underage and I feel it would be disrespectful to him to do that. But let's say it crosses far into the realm of child abuse. This is a topic that I'm particularly sensitive about because I grew up in a shitty situation myself. So believe me when I say that this part is the most satisfying part of my revenge. Let's just say that every time I could hear shit through the ceiling, I took out my phone and started a recording until it stopped. Finally, Phase 3 of my plan was basically to bait Karen and/or Bill into the trap that I set. That, as it turns out, would have humongous consequences for them. Mom and I have this old treadmill that we got for free. It's in the kitchen, and lately we've come to the conclusion that it just takes up a little too much space. We both use it a little, but not enough to justify keeping it. She wanted to toss it out, but I argued hard to keep it around, because I knew I could just use it for this plan. It would be my only shot. Remember how I mentioned we haven't had a car for years? Well, eventually I convinced Mom to let me put the treadmill outside, in our parking space out back. I bought a large tarp to cover it with, so it would be protected from the rain, and I told her I'd start using it more if it was outside, because it's nicer to do exercise in the fresh air. I also sent out an email to Karen, CC'd to Bill and the concurrent third-floor neighbors, asking her to move all the things in front of our oil tank in the basement somewhere else. Despite the fact that those things had been there for many years, I justified addressing it now because I'm the one addressing it, and that's different from before. Because before I was a child, and now I'm an adult who actively participates in the intercondo dialogue. I asked her to because the way she currently had it set up is a safety hazard, and I'm just following the rules. I further let her know that if she and Bill didn't take care of it within a handful of weeks, that I would have no choice but to take care of it myself. In the same email, I let everyone know that I was putting our treadmill in the parking space out back, so that if anyone had any trouble with getting into their spot, to please let me know. The same day I sent out the email, I put the treadmill out back. Now, I figured nothing was going to change from all the other emails I had sent out about matters regarding to the condo's administration, and nothing did. She and Bill never acknowledged anything. The current third floor guy didn't want anything to do with going up against Karen, so he just thanked me for the heads up about the treadmill and said nothing else. It's also important to note here that my real reason for mentioning the treadmill is that email wasn't in case anyone has trouble getting into their parking spot. Needless to say, sure, a treadmill in a kitchen is pretty big and obnoxious, but a treadmill off to the side of an automobile parking lot isn't really big at all. Plus, I placed it in such a way that it wasn't in anyone's way, giving everyone enough room to maneuver around. It was just there, off to the side. The reason I mentioned the treadmill in the email was to alert her to its presence and perhaps associate it in her mind with my request for her to move all of her stuff in the basement. I also began using it at least 3 mornings a week. I timed it so that sometimes Karen and Bill would run into me as they left to drive Henry to school. Every time I saw them, I waved and greeted to ensure they had noticed me on the treadmill. Mom also used it a few times, but she wasn't part of my plan, so I have no idea if she ever ran into them while on it. Here's the other thing I did. I set up a video camera in our laundry basket. We have it permanently in the pantry, next to the pantry window that faces the back area. I buried it beneath clothing so that from outside you can't even see it, but I bought a few massive, memory storage-wise, not physically, SD cards and kept the thing running 24/7 with a timestamp. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. The camera recorded nothing suspicious, and Karen and Bill didn't move their stuff in the basement. Their time was up. So one night, I got up around 1 a.m. when everyone else was asleep, so nobody would hear me, and went downstairs to move their stuff. Reddit, I can't express to you how much I enjoyed this. I bought a GoPro, strapped it to my noggin, and carefully recorded the entire hour and a half of moving their stuff around. I took the enormous pile of junk in front of Mom and I's oil tank and found a way to fit all of it into their designated cubicle. In the end, it was packed. I have mild OCD, and I nearly had an orgasm at the end from how well organized physically everything was, so that everything was neatly packed together and all the space was used at maximum efficiency. It was glorious, packed from floor to ceiling and almost wall to wall all around. If you can just imagine one massive, near-perfect rectangular prism of junk, that's what I had created. It was a masterpiece. I was so proud. On the side the door was on, there was enough space to walk to either wall, but you couldn't move into it anywhere. I got back upstairs to our apartment and couldn't sleep the rest of the night. I was beyond excited. I wound up watching Infinity War to prepare for Ant-Man and the Wasp's then upcoming release. Sure enough, Karen and Bill took the bait. I must have been at school or work when they first discovered the basement because I never heard a thing about it. In hindsight, it's probably best I was out, even though I would have savored those angry shrieks like nothing ever before. In any case, within a few days we discovered our treadmill destroyed. Similarly to the recycling bin of years past, it had been knifed up. I can imagine they probably wanted to straight up take a hammer to it, but they didn't want to make much noise. So they wound up just tearing the thing apart with a really big and really sharp knife. They had seen that we were using it, and aside from our trash and recycling bins, it was our only property that they had access to at that point. Several years back, I filled up the rest of the wall of our basement cubicle and installed a door with a lock, so our cubicle is now sealed off to everyone else, but the others are open and anyone can enter. Plus, I can imagine destroying a $1,000 treadmill is infinitely more tempting than a trash or recycling bin, so they went for it in retaliation for my stunt in the basement. After moving their stuff in the basement, I started timing my treadmill use differently so that I wouldn't run into them. As soon as I saw it after they destroyed it, I went straight to the camera I had set up in the pantry. It caught the whole thing. In true fashion of their relationship, Bill brandished an enormous knife and single-handedly destroyed the whole thing himself, while she stood next to him and seemingly ordered him to do it. She basically kept pointing around at all of the parts she wanted him to cut up. With that in hand, I called the police, reported the incident, told them that my mother and I felt threatened by their presence, and we filed a restraining order against both Karen and Bill with the police the same day. I turned over all the evidence I had gathered of all of the things that they've done over the years, and I also turned over all the audio clips I had of Karen and Bill terrorizing their son. I figured since it was all audio and no video, it wouldn't be enough to get him out of their care, but maybe it would at least get the Department of Children and Families involved. Karen and Bill immediately claimed that I had broken a bunch of their stuff while moving it around in the basement, things that they had no doubt broken themselves. So I offered my GoPro recording as proof that I had not, in fact, broken any of their stuff while I was moving it. The restraining order a person is allowed to file with a police report is always temporary, but you can always petition the court to extend it. Once Mom and I did that, it was granted. At that point, Karen and Bill hadn't been legally allowed to go back home for about a week, and since it became a long-term restraining order, they were basically not going to be allowed to live in their home for several years. So they made the obvious choice to sell the house and move elsewhere. Needless to say, selling a house you're not allowed to be near is a difficult task, and moving all of your stuff out of this house is even more difficult, particularly when you have so much of it. They wound up coordinating the entire house's sale from afar, with their realtor being the only person who came around to show the house. Once it was time for them to move back, some relatives of theirs came around and packed everything up and loaded it into a truck. Also, I was right. Based on my recordings alone, Henry wasn't taken from their custody, but DCF did get involved. I heard from their family that came around to pack up their stuff that Karen and Bill did wind up losing custody of him. They didn't say much as to why, but they basically implied that the abuse ramped up a lot after everything went down between me and Karen and Bill, which is the only part I feel guilty about. But in the end, I hope this is a situation where the end justifies the means, at which point DCF was already sniffing around, so they wound up losing custody of him anyways. I have no idea where Henry wound up, but wherever he is, I obviously have nothing against him, and I hope he winds up in a much better situation than he was. Finally, I will say for two such inordinately obtuse and disgusting human beings, they had surprisingly decent family members. The few times I ran into them and made small talk when they were around, they were pretty apologetic about the whole thing. I got the impression that this isn't the first time they had apologized on Karen and Bill's behalf. I hope Henry is taken in by one of them and not chucked into the foster care system. Update. Holy shit, this is great. Karen lost her job, or at least she's not working where she had been anymore. I assume she was fired, or at least that it had something to do with what went down, but I don't actually have a way to know. I got curious though, after posting this here, because I remembered she worked as a guidance counselor at a school a few towns away, and I figured if the school had found out that DCF took her kid, they might not have wanted her there anymore, and I may have been right. Anyways though, I got curious, so I asked a friend to ring the school's secretary and ask to be transferred to the guidance department, where they asked for Karen's desk. She, my friend, said the guidance secretary just matter-of-factly said, "I'm sorry, that staff member is no longer employed here." And that was that. Seeing as this all went down in the end of 2017 to 2018 school year, I'm guessing they just replaced her at the beginning of the school year. The school's website lists one of the guidance counselors as having started working there this school year. Of course, I have no real way to know if she was fired, nor even if her leaving that position had anything to do with me and my revenge, but it seems like very odd timing if there was no correlation. Admittedly, it's also entirely possible that Karen resigned or left on her own, whether it be to make selling the house and moving easier or just to start over. Who the hell knows? Next up, we've got Sell Me a Fake Vape? I'll destroy your eBay store and have you investigated for fraud. So about 6 months ago, I decided to buy my first vape. I was totally new to the scene and had to do a lot of reading to find out the basics and what kind of vape was right for me. Finally, I found the one I wanted, the Smoke V8 stick. Prices varied across online vape stores, but the lowest price I found was from an eBay seller. The listing said it was authentic and even provided free shipping. I jumped at the chance and bought it immediately. When it came, it looked totally legit. Brand new packaging, authentication slips, and a barcode on the side. It worked pretty well for 3 months. One day, I went to press the firing button and I heard a small click. To my surprise, the button caved into the battery. I tried getting it out, shaking it and pulling it with tweezers, but nothing worked. Naturally, I was pretty mad. This was a relatively new vape that I had never dropped and always took care of. By that time, I picked up more knowledge about vapes. I knew that this was far from normal. I went ahead and filed a warranty claim with Smoke, provided photos of the hole where the button should be, and a picture of the code on the side of the package. I was mildly horrified when a Smoke rep told me that the device I had was a confirmed counterfeit. I was fuming. Not only was I lied to and scammed, but I had read about people who had unknowingly used counterfeit vapes that were burned or even had boiling juice burst out of the tank and onto their faces and arms. I realized that this jerk who sold this fake to me, he had put me in real danger. What if instead of the button failing in it, it had been stuck on firing mode and caused a burn or a fire? The real smoke has safety features for that, but there's no telling if this fake did or not without picking it apart. I took a minute to calm myself. I didn't want to go off on the seller and risk not getting a response. And that time, I took screenshots of the smoke rep's message to me, the broken vape, and the fake authentication barcode. For privacy reasons, I'll call the seller Douchebag Vape Guy, or DV. I sent a message to DV over eBay telling him that I'd like a refund and showing him all the screenshots and photos. Later that day, he responded. It went something like, "It's been too long. I can't refund you, even if I wanted to." That's it. No more mercy for this guy. He obviously doesn't care about what he's doing, so it's time for some revenge. I took a good hour to make some calls. Stop number 1 is to eBay. I called to report DV and his entire vape shop. The lady on the phone was very understanding, and I even gave it a little extra push by saying that the fakes he's selling could harm somebody badly. Maybe a little manipulative, but true. Stop number 2 is to PayPal. I gave them my transaction ID and filed a dispute against the seller to get a refund. I told the guy on the phone just about the same thing, and I insisted that it be escalated to a claim. He obliged. Now the ball is rolling. For those who don't know, in addition to getting the payment revoked if PayPal finds a buyer's favor, PayPal also slaps you with a fine as well. Stop number 3, the grand finale. I called up Smoke Tech and asked them their policy on fake items. The lady on the phone tells me they actively seek out counterfeit sellers and work with the platform they use to get them removed. Excellent. I send the rep the link to DV's shop and the listing that I bought the fake vape from. The lady thanked me and told me they'd be looking into this matter. Now, just to see if what I did worked, I took a screenshot of DV's eBay store to see if anything changed in the days to come. I checked back in about a week and a half later. I couldn't stop myself from laughing. DV had went from 84 listings to a meager 7. All of the remaining listings were just little things like spare parts, rubber rings, and knickknacks for various vape models. No vapes, no coils, no e-juice for sale. 3 days after that, I get an email from PayPal. I had won the claim. Not only did I get my money back, but PayPal was now investigating DV's seller account for fraudulent activity. Immediately, I checked back on DV's eBay store. Not a single item for sale. I grin like the Grinch. Hopefully this moose knuckle learns his lesson and never puts his customers in danger by selling fake vapes again. Not sure whether or not this is petty or pro-revenge, so I'm putting this in both categories. I hope reading this made you as satisfied as doing it made me. Our final story today, getting my neighbor evicted. This happened about 2 years ago, so it might not include every detail. Our crazy neighbor, I will call EB, evil bitch, didn't know what living in a neighborhood was like. As soon as we moved into the house, a very nasty storm moved into the area. It blew down the fence between our yards, along with everyone else's in the neighborhood, and we thought it was no big deal. Within days, which is not even enough time for a fence repair guy to get a quote, we had multiple papers on our door and in our mail demanding we put a new fence up. In Texas, state law states that shared fence in between both of our yards, was shared property. So legally, we could have made EB pay for half the cost, but we did not want to get in trouble with our new homeowners association, so we paid the entire cost. This behavior from EB only got worse. We have owned 2 dogs throughout our lives, so sometimes, like all dogs do, our dog would bark at squirrels, rabbits, and other dogs. EB would constantly report us to the homeowners association for loud dogs, which is not an offense except for the late hours, which is not when this occurred. The homeowners association would warn us for a fine, to which we would reply, "This is a city issue, so if you have a problem, go to the city." Of course, EB would not and only go to the HOA. It gets worse. This neighbor was mentally insane. EB would report us for getting leaves in their yard, and EB put up 10 cameras around the back of their house and even on the median fence, illegal without the neighbor permission. It was all fine because it would not go anywhere, but the last time made me take revenge. A combination of dogs and a backyard tree left a grassless area in our backyard. We bought about 2 pallets of lawn turf so we could patch in the area. Within a day of 2 wooden pallets of grass in our driveway, we get fined by the HOA for having them in our driveway. I go over to complain to our neighbor, who obviously reported it, who says, "I'm not the one breaking rules." This sets me off. EB had built a sidewalk in their backyard to walk their dog on. mentally insane. So I take up our city's legal documents to report it. After asking them to remove it, EB said they could build it because it was on their property. The city investigates, and after 3 days of filing the report, they demand EB to remove it because it was built without a permit. The city also cites EB not owning 2 trees in their front yard, city law, to which EB claims their 2 shrubs were trees. I wasn't told everything by the city, but EB got evicted, they rented, for multiple infractions and failing to remove illegally built sidewalks and patios. We now have a very nice family living next door who are happy to live the neighborhood life. This is all because my dog barked too loud. Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. For more of the best stories from Reddit, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, and I'll see you very soon with some more of the best stories that Reddit has to offer.